All right. So I do a monthly, not weekly, but monthly verbal journal webinar that I invited some outside people in. Generally, this is just for verbal journal users as a way to get people together and find out how other people are using it and go through some different things. Today, I want to focus on something I've been doing with the trading room that I run every morning around 8 Central, about a half an hour before the U.S. stocks open up. I do a poll. And in that poll, it's bullish, bearish, or neutral. All right. And then I put colored dots on there. I'm going to get into that as part of this webinar. A lot of people, however, that are here today don't know what the verbal journal is. So just bear with me if you do know what it is for the first few slides so I can go over it for those that don't know what it is, or else the rest of today will be irrelevant. So several years ago, like 10, in '09 or so, I was sitting in an office with a group of traders and I said, wouldn't it be cool if I clicked on a chart and something came up, recorded my thoughts, closed it, and a certain colored dot came up? And the response was, yeah, great. That'd be awesome. Took me a while to get it finally developed. Didn't take me that long to get it developed, but actually take the idea and implement it. And so that's where and what or how Verbal Journal came to be. So just for this sake, and I'm going to run fast through this because a lot of guys know what this is because they own it. I'm going to talk about some of the surprising benefits later and trying to make it practical for those who journal and then possible for those that don't. I was just talking to someone. They asked me how this verbal journal is going. One thing I've learned is that with journaling comes a little effort. This makes it a lot less effort to journal than writing and reading and all the rest. But what I learned is that most people in the trading community don't want to put forth any effort. If that's a human character flaw, trading character flaw, it's not most people here today, or you wouldn't be here today. Or if you watch this in a recording in the future, you wouldn't listen to it if you want to put forth an effort. But having this as a product, I realized that most people look at journaling as effort. Nobody wants to put forth any effort. This isn't the red light, green light, but it can be, and it's essential to collect your thoughts. A guy who loves this as a tool and idea is Dr. Steenbarger, who I told about several months ago and thought it was an awesome idea. But anyhow, the agenda for today is what could do for you, what has it done in the room as we kind of research this polling together, some journal questions you could ask, but then how it works. Those that really know nothing about me, I threw this in there. I worked at the CME as a clerk for a few years, got my board of trade membership, traded for about 8 months, couldn't make any money, ready to quit, go back to doing electrical work. But I got hired or found out about a prop firm trading electronically, Eurex Futures, called International Trading Group in the northern suburbs of Chicago. Totally turned my career around, gave me a career. I went from making no money to more money to my dad, and I was home by 11:30 in the morning. I still lived at home. I was like 26 years old. What's cool about this business is I just met a guy the other day who did the Edge course, who is following in my footsteps. He's the same age, getting into this business, and some other things that are going on. So being around other people is what's important, I think, in any business, but including this one. So real quick, what can journaling do for you? First of all, you create new lessons from old experiences if you document your thoughts. It'll sharpen your memory because it starts to document your memory. And it makes the most out of each day instead of just another trading session, boring day that you can't remember or can't pull any value out of it, either good or bad. And then there's proof of progress. If you're not progressing, that's proof of something. That's helpful if you use it. All right. And there's many different ways to use it. Some of the journaling questions to ask, and I'm going to get into the meat and potatoes of this in a second. But what is my important task of the day? These are just suggestions of how to use this. What could be your most important task today? Could be outside trading. How'd you sleep last night? Something simple. You could color the dot. What happened today? What happened overnight? Or at the end of the trading session, what happened? And then what am I grateful for today? Outside of trading, these are questions that you could ask and answer and leave dots behind on your chart.
3 even.
So those that know nothing about the verbal journal, what is it? Simply Ninja Trader 7 and 8 and Sierra Charts are the two platforms right now that they work on. If you click on the chart, either Ninja or Sierra, a box like this pops up. In that box, oops, let me bring it up. You make a recording, leave a title, select a color, and a dot appears with the color you selected at the very place you clicked on the chart. All right. So if I blow up this dialog box, we call it, you could see the title box where you leave a title. You could see the play, record, stop buttons where you leave the color, whether or not you want to draw a line as support or resistance and leave a thought of why it's support or why it's resistance, right? All of that stuff is available in a dialog box. Slightly different on Ninja than Sierra, but not much. A little more colorful on Ninja, but I think a little bit more easier to use on Sierra. Why to use this thing? I don't even have to go into this, but I will because there's some people that don't even know me. That's my family here on the left. That's me, top left. I'm not the tallest in the family, but I'll let you in on a secret. I stood on my toes for these pictures. Nobody can understand why I look the tallest. My dad on the lower right, I show my family because he told us, you guys heard me say this 1,000 times, if you know how, you'll have a job. If you know why, you'll be the boss. You got to find out the why markets move, why you're doing stupid stuff, why you're doing good stuff, why. So you have to start the journal. Verbal journal makes it easy. You have to document where you're missing trades. Those are your worst and best trades ever. Missed trades. They don't come up on your statement, though. They will on a verbal journal. It'll save time instead of writing and documenting, typing and all that stuff. Who's going to read paragraphs of their thoughts? Pre-market bias or opinion, what we're going to touch on today and how we've done that over the last couple months. And finally, confidence. No matter what walk of life you come from, how successful you have been or trying to be, confidence has to replace fear, and fear is in all of us. Fear is what costs us from pulling the trigger. Fear costs are responsible for missing trades. Fear, too much of it paralyzes you. None of it makes you like a cowboy as far as risk management. You call it risk mismanagement with no fear. How do you create a healthy balance of fear? You have to replace it with confidence. How do you get confident? You got to get consistent. All right? So that's just a summary in 10 minutes of some of the reasons why to use this verbal journal, what the heck it is, and some background on it. Now, these monthly coaching classes I do generally are exclusively for people who have bought this software. It's a one-time purchase on Ninja or Sierra. We'll talk about that later. But we have these monthly meetings to talk about how other people are using it. Now, over the last, let's get rid of this. All right. Over the last, you might hear something in the background. That's the edge alert, but bear with me on that. If it's too loud, let me know. But the over the last 2 months, I've been hosting a trading room for over 5 years, hell, 7 years now. And, that's funny because June 6th, 2012, when I started hosting the room, Market Delta had asked me to host a room for them, and I worked it out with Trevor not to be an employee of Market Delta because I couldn't have a boss. And so we had a good relationship. And then Market Delta went the way they went, and it opened up a lot of things for me with the Sierra charts because I was always a Market Delta guy, and it's still a great piece of software. But Sierra's come along, and they really have created some price pressures in this industry. And so Verbal Journal works on it. And I started using it in October, November. You guys know that are in the trading room and in my Edge program that, number one, I don't switch platforms a lot, probably 3 times in my career. I'm not a real super tech guy, but this was a painless transition for me. It does everything all these other pieces of software do for a lot less money. But enough about that. Just brought to mind early June 2012 is when I started doing a room. So over the last 2 months, what I did is I took Verbal Journal. I said, we're going to use it every day. We're going to set out a poll, which has nothing to do with the Verbal Journal. But we're going to put out a poll, and I asked the question, and it's a formal poll by Zoom: bullish, bearish, or neutral. All right. Now, when I get the results, I take and the way it works on Sierra is you click this green button here. It says VJ. Okay. You left click. Anywhere you click on the chart will open up a dialog box. And after you make a recording, the dot or line will be left wherever you click. So it's important to know where you're clicking. So if we make a poll or do a poll right now, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning at the price of 2,900 even, let's say, that's where we're going to click. And this box pops up. Looks a little different than it did on Ninja, just without the fancy colors because Sierra didn't allow us to do it. But a couple things. In the title, it also remembers previous titles you made, so you don't have to keep typing new ones. And it alphabetizes it. So I put in a survey, so I know it's at the top of my list. And what I use is this color scheme in this row. It's just the way I do it. You don't have to do this exactly the same. You could have your own kind of method to your madness of how you're going to gauge how bullish or bearish a particular poll is. The top is real bearish. The bottom is real bullish, and then so on in the middle. If we're overwhelmingly neutral, I use white. If it's really bearish, I use one of these top two colors. Real bullish, one of these two bottom colors. That's the row I use. You could use this row. Whatever row you want, you could follow and be consistent with your method. That's what I do, all right? So then you select the color, all right? You record. We're bullish. I think most of the room is bullish because of this, because of that. You got to click stop, and you click close, and that dot just appeared right there. Did you see it? That's where I clicked. And then when you go to click it, you can play it back. We're bullish. I think most of the room is bullish because of this, because of that. Yeah. Were you guys able to hear the computer sound? Yes or no? Were you able to hear that playback? All right, good. So I'm going to delete it because it's not something that I want to hang in there. But all these dots represent, these are all, by the way, daily bars. I don't look at this chart often. As you guys know, in the room, this is the chart layout that you guys see, right? But this is on another screen. Let me blow it back up. This is simply a daily bar chart. Now, early on when we started doing this, which was around early March, I want to say. It was in mid-March, okay? In mid-March. I would take the poll, and then based on the results, I'd put the color that the results warranted. But I was kind of slow in putting it at the price and the exact time that we made it. I put it at the right time mostly, but not the price always. So I got better lately in doing that because that's important. A lot of people I see that were doing it were putting the price in the title or saying the price, and that's fine, but save a step and just put the dot where the price is and the time that you made that you had the poll. Because I will give everybody the poll results so everybody in the room has the ability to do this themselves. So all the white dots you see is where the market was neutral, and all the different shaded dots are either bullish or bearish. The darker it is, the more bullish it was. The lighter it is up to pink, the more bearish it would be. Now, this doesn't tell you a whole bunch because a lot could happen on a day session, right? Wide range. Where were we bullish? Where were we bearish? That's that's not enough. But what's unique about a verbal journal is you could change the time frame and the dots will reappear. For example, I think it's important to look at this when I started looking at it to try to glean some information and some advantage from it on a 15-minute bar chart. It'll work on any time period or any chart type, right? So this is a 15-minute bar chart, real simple. This was back at, I opened the room at 8, so the poll is generally done at 8 or just after it, okay? So this was done at around 8 o'clock, obviously, and it was neutral this particular day on a 15-minute. Now we're able to see a little bit more. Did the room get it right? Did the room get it wrong? What happened pretty close to the open, all right? What I'm noticing is on a lot of days that we're neutral, and it doesn't, here's what I want to make sure everybody understands, and listen to me for a second. You could have an opinion and never follow it, and that's great. You don't have to have a pre-market opinion. By all means, you don't have to have one. But a lot of people do. What is it? And if enough people have it, let's take a poll. Doesn't mean you have to have one. Very often, I don't have one. But I like to know where the market's leaning, right? Where many of the participants are leaning. And maybe this trading room poll could give us a sample, because there's enough sample size, in my opinion, to get a gauge on where the most of the market is 30 minutes or so before the open, right? So if we're overwhelmingly neutral, to me, what that tells me, and I had to think through the logic, but if the room is overwhelmingly neutral, most of the rest of the market is probably neutral, all right? Most of the rest of the market, which means what? Which means nobody's really expecting a move. Guess what? That's when you get one. Now, up or down, you're going to have to use some real-time skills to stack those probabilities. The point is, when nobody's expecting a move is generally when you get it. Now, if we're neutral because it's a small range, volume is crappy, nothing's going on, that's different. You know, everybody's neutral because there's nothing going on. We're probably not going to move up or down much anyways. If it's a typical summer market, which I don't think we'll have this summer because of all the news that's driving us around. But point of the matter is, when the market's neutral, what I'm noticing is we're getting a move at some point after the open, up or down, because the market isn't expecting it. So what happens when the market's not expecting a move up or down? That means it's able to go down easier because not a lot of people are short, or up easier because not a lot of people are long. Always remember, if there are too many people long, what does that mean? That means there are a lot of people who are sellers. If there are a lot of people who are sellers, it's hard to go up. It's a crowded trade. Too many people are short. There's a lot of buying below. Hard to go down if it's a crowded trade. If a lot of people are neither, maybe there's less resistance to go up and less support to go down. Just keep that in mind. I'm not giving you guys scientific evidence here. This is the beginning of my research, and you guys are coming along for the ride with me, especially trading room members, because you're involved in it every day. All right? So this isn't scientific evidence. But what's cool about it is that I could click on this dot and listen to whatever I might have said that day. Let's listen.
In line with expectations.
Five quarter.
And say anything. I just noted the color, and that's fine. Sometimes I don't say anything. Sometimes I do. Here's another thing I noticed by going through this again. There are some days I could tell in my voice that I'm spent, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and I had usually start my day at 6:45 or 7, roughly Central Time, an hour before I open the room, and an hour and a half before the market's open, 20 minutes before the bonds open. My point is that sometimes even 8 o'clock, I could tell I'm tired, and I bet you guys can too. Not me being tired, but you yourself being tired. So let's roll through. These are 15-minute bars. Forget about the edge zones for now. We're not talking about that for this discussion. But these are 15-minute bars. This is probably overnight market, and it is. And we're going to roll up until the beginning of the next day when we have our next dot that's in that color scheme of light or dark red. What happened? Did I skip over one? And that's fine. But we go through it. Here's one. This one's taken. What is this? Let's listen. First of all,
3/2.
this is
3/2.
a pretty bullish call by the room.
3/2.
Let's
3/2.
listen.
3/2.
Cord, we
Three
talk
half.
about the
Three
reason
half.
why it's bullish.
Three half.
Unemployment number,
Three
both
half.
came in.
3/2.
263 versus 188 on the payroll, 3.6 versus 3.8 on the rate.
3/4.
So that's interesting. We weren't just bullish for any other reason than we had a strong economic number. This was unemployment Friday,
3/2.
and we had a good
3/2.
report
Three half.
rate-wise
3/2.
and non-farm payroll-wise.
3/2.
So
3/2.
we were bullish,
3/2.
maybe with some fundamentals behind us, and net we were right. But keep that in mind. We had something like a tailwind behind us, so it was, I think, a little bit more, I don't want to say obvious to be bullish, because most people wouldn't be bullish for the same reason. They don't even know how to analyze a number. But we're bullish until wherever they started with that number gets taken out. That's the way I approach it, and how a lot of guys who know what they're doing approach it. When there's a strong number and it means something, and it came out here, and we're trading up here, then we come back down through ground zero. Well, then how bullish was this number if it can't hold the rally from where it started, right? But if it stays above where it started, well, then maybe the bullishness is intact. If it takes back the entire rally and goes below where it started, then you start to question the bullishness of the number. Those are for bigger numbers. There aren't many that the market will trade directly off of. Unemployment Friday, however, is one of them. So let's roll forward. I'm not going to go over every day. Just going on some obvious things that I've gleaned from this. It's a gap open lower, it would seem. And as we roll into 8 Central, boom, we've got this guy. What is this guy? This guy is pretty bearish. Awesome, because it doesn't work. I love that. I love when it doesn't work. I'm going to explain why.
Record.
Let's listen.
Neutral 53%, 30% bearish, the rest bullish.
Now, why do I like that being bearish? We talk about this in the room all the time. It has no bearing on wanting to be right. I want the market to be wrong. I want us to be wrong, but catch it sooner rather than later. If we're pretty bearish, all right, then most of the rest of the market is probably bearish. This particular day, you've seen it when I was scrolling forward, it gapped open lower, right? So you got a lot of people that are bearish. That goes without saying. Well, that's fine if it opens up and goes down. They'll validate it or not. This market opens up and goes straight up from the open. You know you got a lot of dumb, you know what, stuck. And the thing rallies for the most of the rest of the morning. The whole day, actually. It's not until the last half hour do they sell them back off. This is a whole day rally. It caught the market off guard. They went down on what we've been talking about as stupid news, something that came out that got the market cheap in this particular example. It's awesome to be wrong, but you got to take a poll and be able to see and get confident that if most of the rest of the market is bearish and it doesn't go down, they're stuck because those guys can't get out. Most of the rest of the world can't get out of losing trades or losing opinions. We can. Here's another example, right? Where, let's see why we're bearish.
Record. 47% bearish coming in, opening up a lot lower than yesterday's close.
Now, this is an example where you're bullish. We're bearish, right? The market opens up, goes up 5 handles. Once it comes back through, kind of like a head fake, gets back to bearish again. Another example of you could have been, just think about this for a second. You could have been bearish, seen it rally, try to buy it, lose money. As soon as you seen it go back through, you turn back around and say, hey guys, they shook out everybody that was bearish, right? As they walked up, because they walked by, there's probably less shorts in the market, clearing a path for it to go lower. That's what's important. And you got to document those thoughts. There's only so many thoughts I could document, but in the room, when you get a bearish day and we rally, but then come right back through the open, that's why I always mark the open with the yellow line, as you guys know in the room. That's a head fake. All right, so let's move forward. So there's a couple things that as I've went through this, I didn't want to start going through this until I had enough data. And I've been telling guys that. So I figured let me jump into it and see what it shows us, but also take notes on how to do a better job, like how to make sure you're accurately putting the price and the time where your dot is. Then maybe be a little bit more detailed as to why we might be bullish or bearish. How many people in the room that have the verbal journal do this? Obviously, you have to be in the room to listen to the poll results and have the verbal journal, but how many do it? This is a particular day.
2 even.
There was only 1 or 2 days I missed taking the poll because we might have forgot. That could have been one of them. So a handful, just a few got, well, there's not that many people in this webinar today, but a few do this poll along with me. How many people, before I go on, how many people have Sierra charts? All right, so a good handful of you. If you don't have this and you want it, and there's a discount code that I have, let me know. I'll give that discount. I'll make that available to people who don't have it if you want it out of this event. Now listen to me a second. We're bearish in here, correct? Pink means as bearish as we, pretty overwhelmingly bearish. 830 is right in here. So the market opens up and pretty much goes straight down. This is where it opens at 8:30. All right, these are 15-minute bars. The hash mark on the left is the open, and that's the close. So we open and pretty much go straight down. Comes up and goes down. Here's what I want people to understand. The reason why I mark the open with a yellow line, and it doesn't have to be yellow, but the reason why I mark the open is because that's essentially ground zero. You know how we talk about where was the price when a big number or event comes out? 86 was that price today when Mueller was talking. And lo and behold, where we probably just go, I was watching it and come off. I think 86 was the high of this move. The point is, that's today after Mueller was talking. To me, that was ground zero where there was activity. The open is ground zero because that's where we start. So if you're bearish, if the market's overwhelmingly bearish, and it rallies a point or two after the open and crosses back down through the open, you're not wrong. You could play it from the short side, not just because it works, but because it's below the open. When it starts to get above the open, you got to be careful because you're getting a lot of people stuck, and you got to be on your toes because the market's overwhelmingly bearish. Does that make sense? So if you get too far upside of the open, you probably get a lot of people stuck because most of the rest of the market's coming in bearish. This is killing me. I got to look at this real quick. 86. Look at where it went. 86. We talked about this in the room. Remember 86 was a big spot during that Mueller statement? No coincidence. It went up there almost to the tick and came off. All right. Let's go back. Now, you could put this on a 60-minute, but if you're doing this, you're not doing it necessarily like I'm doing it now. I'm just kind of just walking through it with you guys to get an idea of how it's been helping after we kind of create enough data. Let's listen what I say here.
And just record
3/4.
Trump stepping on his tweet message from yesterday in a campaign speech last night. So in the morning he was optimistic. At night he wasn't. And here we are, pretty bearish, down 1%.
All right, so you heard what I said. This was a result of Trump was optimistic about China, and then he stepped all over it in a campaign speech. And I remember talking about, I wish I was in front of my screens that night when he was talking. So it was a pretty bearish comment he made at one of his rallies. All right, so the market opens up, and 20 this doesn't look like much, just a 20-point break. Is it a coincidence
3.5,
where it opens? As soon as it gets through it, what did it get? Pretty bullish.
4.5,
Not a coincidence. Remember, ground zero. There's a reason why I mark things on my chart. You don't see a lot of crap on my charts. So if it's on there, it's probably important. You guys get the gist of it. Here is, no, not really bullish. Let's listen.
43%. Neutral, 38 bullish.
So neutral to bullish. That's why I put that right in here, slanted on the bullish side, but not too much. Although Tom in the room talks about a lot of people in a neutral camp lean towards being bullish anyways. Here we are dead wrong. When are you wrong? Generally, there's other things to measure. I'm not just going to say, hey, back through the open, sell it. Life is good. But that's when you start to say, hey, we might have this market caught off guard. A lot of it was bullish coming in, and maybe the downside could have some fuel to it. There's other things to look at, like stock buyers and some of the stuff we look at through the edge zones and correlations. But when you could start to know that, hey, the downside could have some follow through because the market came in
3 even,
potentially
3 even,
overbought
3
or too
even,
bullish,
3
and you're getting
even,
people stuck
3 even,
and pushing it lower. Fernando,
3
good to see
even.
you. Here, I'll give you that. If anybody else wants it, let me know. Gap open lower. So we come into the market bearish. Who would have thunk it? I put this, either I took the poll late or I put it in the wrong spot. Let's listen.
Over 70% bearish, and we were open 2% lower.
All right. So we took the poll at 8 o'clock, but I didn't add it to the verbal journal till later. But we opened up 2% lower, and right in here, we rally. As soon as we cross back through where we open, we get bearish. What do you like about this? You probably shook out some shorts. Then when you got through this line, let me draw this again. Here's the open on the 8:30 session. Let me draw a line through it. No coincidence. And once it gets through, it gets bearish, and then it's used as overhead resistance. Follow through. It's hard to go down if everybody's bearish, but you shook them out with a little pop. So then the follow through could have some legs. What's another way that it could have legs if everybody's bearish? First of all, you get a shakeout, and then it goes. Here's the other way. We open, go right down. Because then a lot of the people who are bearish, guess what? They're not in. They're chasing. This is just, again, one way to use the verbal journal to record your thoughts. Record your thoughts, and then if you're also in the trading room, you have the opportunity to record and pull a decent sample size of people to get a sense of what you're thinking versus what maybe a good sample size of most of the rest of the market's thinking. And then why? So I'm not going to go through every day, but you could begin to see the importance of where are they wrong. Well, first of all, is the market overwhelmingly bullish or bearish? And where would that opinion change? Where would your opinion change? Because if you could change your opinion quicker than the rest of the market, that's where opportunities lie. If you're wrong with everybody else, you have the same results as most everybody else. And that is failure in this particular business. So it's not about the opinion. It's the opportunity to change the opinion for consistent reasons. Anybody got any questions? Again, you could put this on different time frames to get an idea of how your particular bias is or how the groups might be. And when you put it on a longer time frame and you use certain colors, you could quickly say, why the hell am I coming up with an opinion? It's always wrong. Or, hey, it's always wrong. That's invaluable information. I'll still have the same items to create the opinion, but I'll do the opposite. Or you have a high probability of an accurate opinion, but you don't trade it enough. This will help give you the confidence to miss less. Good question, John. The difference, Sierra, in order to create a verbal journal note in Sierra, a button will appear once you load it. You don't have to load it to all your charts either. You only have to do it once, but you can load it to as many or as few charts as you want. But you click the verbal journal button, and then you just click anywhere on the chart, wherever you clicked a message. As long as you make a recording and hit stop, hit close, the color that you left, whether or not you put a line, will appear. So let's draw a line. Let's a miss, record. I missed a trade because I wasn't paying attention. Everything's set up, and I just missed the damn thing, and I'm really pissed about it. I got to be careful. What happens next is really important and where I get myself in trouble. So just relax. You miss a trade, it's going to happen. You hit stop. You hit close. There's the color dot and the line. What's cool is you could click anywhere on the line to play back the message. You don't have to click on the dot. But you also don't have to make a line. So when I go to play this back, I missed a trade because I wasn't paying attention. Everything's set up, and I just missed the damn thing, and I'm really pissed about it. I got to be careful. What happens next is really important and where I get myself in trouble. So just relax. You miss a trade, it's going to happen. You know how helpful it is just to say stuff, get it off your chest? That's what everybody does when they talk through a problem, whether it's with your spouse, a loved one, a friend, a psychiatrist. What do? Talk. Get it off your chest. A missed trade is where, after missed trades is when you're going to make bad decisions. When you miss a good trade. When you miss good trades, your mind is going to force you into, most likely, a trade sooner than you otherwise would have put it on. Why? Because your mind wants to get back what you just missed as soon as it can. Wants to make up for that deficit. So make sure you're documenting missing good trades. Not just so you miss less of them, but that you get it off your chest so you don't do something stupid or hasty in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or you put on a trade simply because you missed the last trade. You chase because you missed. How many people miss their entry and chase? Say yes if you could relate to that. You missed your entry and you chase to the upside. Then you get filled and you take immediate heat back down to where you missed it, get stopped out, and then it rallies. Tell me that is not a common denominator among anybody who's been in this business for 5 years or 5 minutes. And then you can delete it, and it goes away.
Even have.
The messages are stored in your C drive in a folder per product. So if you have messages on oil, they'll show up in a folder, CL, the symbol, and the ES per symbol per Sierra charts. So if your charts crash, you still always have the backup in a WAV file on your PC. Here's another example of being, this is on a 60-minute, being bearish and we rally. That's awesome to know because, hey, the market's really bearish, guys. Everybody in the room is bearish. There's maybe some feel. Be careful fighting this thing until we get back through where we started. If we're not getting back through where we started, the upside's the right side. Now, you don't know it's going to rally all the way from 20 to 60. This is a huge rally. This is over the course of 6 hours. But you can anticipate where you change your mind. That's why the open's important. That's why understanding where most of the rest of the field
9 even.
is in a particular
9 even.
event. One last thing I'll leave you with
9 even.
is
9 even.
if you knew as you were watching a sporting event that everybody was loaded up
9
on,
even.
let's call it the Boston, since the hockey's going on, the Boston Bruins are playing the St. Louis Blues, right? Everybody, you're watching this hockey game, and everybody in the bar has money on the Bruins to win the game, right? You could tell probably by their cheering and everything that that's the case. Now, what if you could bet against them in the last minute when St. Louis takes a 1-goal lead with a minute to go? Would you do it? Of course you would. Because St. Louis just took a 1-goal lead and you know you got the herd. There's a lot of money to be made. Those people who bought who I should say bet the Bruins have to do the opposite to get out. Think about shorts and longs, Bruins and Blues. They're going to have to, they do it with just giving their money up. But there's a lot of fuel if you knew one side was loaded up. So remember, people's exits is what moves markets. Number one. And number two, if you knew people's positions, you could trade with your toes. You had a good sample size of everybody's position at any given time. Even though this has nothing to do with verbal journal necessarily, I want to talk about it because it's important for those that trade. And if you're not in a room, just to get a little fundamentals behind you. Mueller came out and made a statement today about resigning and everything else. And at first it was bullish the first minute, and they rallied to 86. And 86 then became a spot. Let me show you why. 86, right after 10 o'clock, they popped them right here. 86 was an edge zone on my other chart. Stopped them, stopped them, stopped them, stopped them, all these 4 times. When they got through it, they had some upside inventory to fill. They got it. As soon as they got back through 86, they were gone to the downside. And then he started to stack some comments that was giving fodder to the Democrats for going down the impeachment trail or some validity. He just kind of tilted that way. I think that's what the speech was. Honestly, I think that he was negotiating whether or not to testify in front of Congress. And they said, give a statement like this, and then you don't have to testify. Just wrap things up and be done. So he did it. That was the deal that they made. And it's news today, and it's news tomorrow, and it's news next week, but it's not necessarily news forever. However, with all the headwinds that we have today, U.S.-China trade, the trade war, and whatnot, this was just a straw, like I said in the room, that broke the camel's back and pushed us right where they wanted to go anyways, all the way to 66. Now, Pelosi comes out just after 12 o'clock and talks about, she didn't mention anything about impeachment. I think the market had a little relief rally to it. Same talking points that, if there's a crime, we'll investigate and so on. But she didn't use the word, I think she didn't use the word impeachment. So this was a relief rally that I guarantee you this stop here was a thin spot up around 77 even. But where does it go? Not once, but twice almost. 86, 86. There's no coincidence to that. Let me look at this price now. What is it, about 77 even, this swing low here? Why did it stop there? What did I say, 77? I was going to say, I bet we have an edge zone, and we did, but the edge zone was at 79. And it stopped it here and then rallied it. Well, that was the price, 79, 78, even is where it went. 79 had a nice edge zone, or came down, stopped it, popped it back up. But let me see something. The reason why that was an edge zone is because it was a thin spot. See all this thin green in here? Here, draw it across. Here is where it got fast. No coincidence that the arrows are wrong. No coincidence that it came right down there, right in between where these yellow arrows were. Any other questions before I go? I popped in the discount code if you want this, Sierra or Ninja Trader 7 and 8. I'll do it again. Here's the website again. verbaljournaltrading.com. It's kind of a unique session. Generally, this is just for Verbal Journal users. Once a month, we do a session, kind of like a coaching session. But because this was also unique to the polling we did in the room, I invited some extra people. Hold on, Tim. Give me 1 second. Brian T., are you still here?
Even quarter. Even quarter. Even quarter.
New website, Brian. Yes, Ninja Trader 7 or 8. It's a different downloadable file for 7 and 8. But I give it, you buy one, you get the other. So when you eventually go to 8, if you're on 7, you'll have the file for 8 and you won't have to buy it again. All right, Brian, take care. Hold on, Mike. I have people that use a verbal journal for things outside of trading. They use it for trading, but outside of trading. Because you're time stamping your thoughts. Could be some health issues you're having, because all of it could affect your performance as a trader. Get it down there. Get it documented. When, where, go back and listen. It's hard to keep a paper journal. That's why you go to the website, you see the first picture of stacks of notebook paper, very unorganized. So we'll see everyone that's a verbal journal user next month. Room guys, we'll see you tomorrow. I did record this and I'll upload it on YouTube for you guys to see. Have a good rest of the week, month. See you soon.